I'm incredibly warm. All the setup and everything just gets me really, especially because I was already wearing this. But anyway, nobody needs to hear that. Welcome back, everyone, to another video. The last video that you would have seen, if you watch all of them, you might not, but the latest one that I released was a bit of a different video for me. It was I think I titled it Knit With Me. So I've released part 1. Part 2 is already ready to go. I just don't want to release them all at once. And I don't want to make them too long either, because I know not everyone likes long videos. And most of the videos I make are really long. But that video is just kind of me sitting down, knitting on the dark water sweater as part of the knit along that Jennifer Steingass, who's Knit Love Wool on Instagram and Ravelry and things, is doing. So I'm doing the dark water sweater as part of that knit along, and I thought, since when I started it, it was my first colourwork sweater, I would film it. Because I know some people are quite nervous about doing colourwork, especially when it comes to a jumper. I know I was. Took me 8 months to cast this on. I had it all caked up and ready to go over the summer last year. And just didn't do it. Just kept staring at it and being like, no, I should finish other things. Yet she started more things anyway. But anyway, today is Saturday. I'm hoping to actually get this out the next day, so hopefully you'll be able to watch this on Sunday. But today is actually the first yarn craft festival that Laura from Adventures in Yarncraft is doing. So I've been kind of watching a few bits, but I thought I need to sit down and film this at some point. So that's what we're doing now. I completely lost my train of thought. But before I get into the knitting, the progress, for those of you who don't actually know me, welcome to this rambling space. My name is Nina. I am currently filming in the lovely York in the UK, in England, where I am doing my PhD in chemistry. If anyone's interested, I'll share some PhD progress update stuff either at the end of this video, depending how long it is, or in future Knit With Me videos that I'm doing for the dark water sweater. So if anyone's interested in the PhD progress update stuff, I'll either save it to the end or another video, because I know not everyone's interested, but I also know for me personally, I really liked it when, and still like it, when I watch like knitting podcasts and people are doing a PhD and they kind of just share their experience. It just, I don't know, it just makes me kind of connect even more with people when you're kind of going through all that stress and drama. But let's give a quick kind of overview of what I've been up to. So it's been 2 weeks, slightly more than 2 weeks since I last recorded a podcast episode, and that's because I had the Knit With Me video in between, and I'm currently trying to focus on about 1 video a week, but I'm not putting any pressure on myself. I have a PhD to focus on, and this is for fun. So if I don't feel like filming, it's just not going to happen. And it just means I get more time for knitting and get to share more things. But considering it's been slightly over 2 weeks, I haven't actually got that many finished things to share, because I've kind of just made a lot of progress on things where I'd only kind of just started. So I'll share all of that. But obviously, this is a finished object. So I'm sure I shared this in my previous podcast episode, but this is the Aurora sweater by Vicky from Tiny Teal. Handcrafted? Quickly goes to grab phone because she never remembers, is it handcrafted or not? I know it's Tiny Teal. Handcrafted, I got it right. So this is, as far as I'm aware, her first pattern. Definitely her first sweater, but it might also just be her first pattern. So she dyes really beautiful yarn. I've knitted a pair of socks for her as a sample, which I got to keep. But I took pictures of it for her so she could use that on her website. So we've been in contact a bit about kind of the fact that we're both thinking about, designing and stuff. She's obviously got onto it much quicker than I have. And we were both kind of talking about how nervous we are about, once you've finished a design, finding test knitters. What happens if nobody wants to test it because, you know, nobody really knows you as a designer yet? So we kind of said, oh, we'll help each other out. So I said, if you've got something, I'll test knit it. And then this came along. So it's the Aurora sweater. I think it's coming out later this month or beginning of next month. I'm not sure yet. But if you follow Vicky on Instagram, I'll have a link below. You'll hear all about it. The yarn. Let's talk about the yarn first. So I used so this is a fingering weight yarn held with a mohair or some kind of a lace weight fluffy yarn. You could also use Surrey alpaca, which is my favorite personally. But I had some mohair, and I had 2 skeins of mohair lying around that I didn't know what to do with, and 2 skeins of a fingering weight yarn where I also wasn't sure what to do with. And I thought they worked quite well together because I have been loving marled jumpers. I've got another one to share, I think, in my next podcast. It's been done for a while, but I want to weave in the ends and block it so I can then wear it. And it's also marled. So I've just been loving that. So the fingering weight yarn is Auburn Biscuit by ChintzPies, and the mohair is called Golden Brown by Hook and Light, dyed using onions. So Hook and Light dye naturally. And I think the combo is beautiful. So I don't know how well you'll be able to see it. It's a raglan jumper worked top down, but the increases are done differently to how I've kind of seen them. So you get these kind of like open eyelets with how you increase, which I think is just really nice because I've made quite a few raglan top down jumpers and tops and things. And I've seen a few different ways of doing increases, but this is the first time I've done this. And I think it's a really nice little thing. And I was at first worried, like, oh, but if it's too open, like I'd have to always wear something underneath it, but I'm not wearing a t-shirt underneath it. So yes, it is a bit open, but because of the mohair, it really fills it out. So you just get this really subtle hint of those eyelets. The way that Vicky designed this jumper is, I think she says you can have 1 inch of positive ease all the way, I think she says, to like 10 or something. So some people from the test knitter group, because there were quite a few of us on Instagram, so Vicky made like a group for us, which was really nice. But some people made it really, really oversized. I went, I think, for 2, maybe 3 inches. And 2 inches is typically my favorite because it's fitted in the sense that you can still kind of see my shape underneath, and that's what I quite like. The pattern was lovely, absolutely amazing, really well described. There's some short row shaping, which I always like because I find it makes everything just sit and fit better. The only kind of issue we all had was that the yarn estimates that were given weren't completely accurate. Now, I do not blame Vicky for that because that is really hard to get right because, you know, she would have knitted her sample and then has to use that to estimate how much yarn you need for other sizes, smaller, bigger, whatever. And that's not easy. Especially because as soon as people, like, I always have to make my sleeves longer. Though interestingly, this is the first pattern I think I've ever knitted where I didn't have to add like 2-3 extra inches for the arms. I think I only had to do like 1 inch. So the sleeves were already quite long. I think some people, for them, that was too long. But this is the thing, like, as a designer, you're probably gonna use your measurements as a basis. So if you're used to living with long arms, you're gonna make garments that have sleeves that fit for you. But anyone else who then follows that might then be like, these are too long. But you can just knit them shorter. So I got my first skein of yarn. I did the yoke, bound off, like separated the sleeves and the body, and then knitted until I ran out of my first mohair and my first fingering skein. Now my mohair was 425 meters, my fingering weight was 400. So I already knew I was going to have more mohair, that's really hard to say, than the fingering weight yarn. But I was like, I'm sure it'll be fine. because I think the estimates that were given to me were like 760, so I thought I'd be okay. So I finished the sleeves and didn't have that much left. Went back to the body and was like, well, we'll just make it as long as we can. And I got to a point where I was like, if I don't start the ribbing soon, so it's got some ribbing at the bottom as well. You can see what I'm about to say. I've had to make mine quite cropped. So my hips are here, my waist is here. So kind of, it's a really nice cropped length for me personally. That's how I like to wear my cropped sweaters, not here where my waist is, but kind of the ribbing the ribbing starts kind of where my waist is. That's how I like if I do something cropped. I wasn't going to make this cropped, but as I was knitting, I was like, I'm not going to have enough yarn. My fingering weight yarn was already so close to the end that the ribbing nearly wasn't going to work out, and didn't work out. So I ended up using, at the bottom, I'll show you again, because I don't think you can tell. So up to about here, it's the Auburn Biscuit ChintzPies, and then from here, I kind of interchanged a mini skein that I have from Pigment and Ply. I bought one of her mini skein sets, and there was one skein, like mini skein in there, so a 20 gram one, that was almost exactly the same colour. So I got quite lucky, but there were kind of two mini skeins, that one that I ended up using, and another one which was similar enough, and I was like, with the mohair, that's what kind of dominates when you hold two strands of something. The mohair, in my opinion, always kind of wins. And so I thought, yeah, you probably wouldn't be able to tell, and I don't think you can at all. When you hold the skein and the mini skein next to each other, you could barely tell there. So I did the ribbing, I think entirely out of the mini skein, maybe even an inch or so, I think, before then. I switched in the mini skein and alternated with the main skein. And I have a little bit of the fingering weight left, and also a little bit of the mohair. So I maybe could have gotten out another 2-3 rows, but like I said, it's actually the perfect crop length for me. So I'm not annoyed about the fact that I couldn't make it longer, that's fine. And I'm just happy. If I didn't have the mini skein, I'm not sure how much wear I would have gotten out of this, and I would have probably had to really aggressively block it, which I'm not a fan of doing. So this wasn't aggressively blocked at all, just kind of laid it out nicely. And I think it fits really well. I love the sleeve. It's got a slight balloon, because from memory, I don't think you decrease until you get to the ribbing, the cuff. And the sleeve length is also perfect for me because I made it slightly longer like I always do. But it's a really, pardon me, a really lovely design. I also love it when I don't have to go back and do the neckband later. So the fact that you just, like with the Cozy Classic Raglan by Jessie May, if you've watched my previous videos where I've talked about making that one, or have made it yourself or seen it online, I like that you do the ribbing first and you just go. I also, I've talked about this before, do the sleeves before I do the body, because I'd rather have decent fitting sleeves than a long body. So I could have done shorter sleeves, full length body. I'm not going to wear that. So I am a fan of pushing my sleeves up. So sometimes I will kind of knit like half or something sleeves, but for this I was like, I'm not going to do that, not with mohair, because then you get all sweaty here and then it's uncomfortable. So that's my first finished object, which I've rambled on about for a long time now. So I love it. This is the first time I'm wearing it because it's still quite cold, even though I was just complaining about the fact that I'm really warm. That's because of all the setup and that this is quite warm. I'm always surprised by mohair and fingering weight yarn. It's not that thick, but the mohair just keeps you warm. But it's like 8 degrees today. It's still quite cold and it just takes a long time for things to dry. So I will say, for anyone who's interested, I actually learnt, this is so weird, but during my bachelor's degree, so I studied in New Zealand and I did a Bachelor of Science, majoring in chemistry, minoring in mathematics. And during one of our courses on the chemistry, one of the chemistry courses that I had to take, We learnt about the science behind drying. It was pretty boring, but it did kind of change how I dry things now. Because I think everyone's kind of in the habit of, if it's not warm, you can't dry something. But warmth isn't as important as wind. So what I then try to do when I block something is try and have like my windows or my like outside doors open, because the wind or the airflow, we're about to get very scientific, so please skip ahead if this isn't interesting for you, but it removes the top layer of the water vapor is what it's called, so the like gas, if you will, that's sitting right at the surface that isn't in the yarn. So it's already evaporated off, but it's just sitting there and could condense back down and keep your jumper wet. If that gets blown off, there's such a thing as an equilibrium. I'm sorry, but I find this really interesting. So then more will evaporate off and it dries much quicker. So this is why even on a cold day, if it's really windy outside like it is today, dry your yarn outside. Warmth is not the most important thing. Wind is more important. Now, wind with warmth is going to be dry so quickly. But if you've ever dried anything outside on a really warm day, what ends up happening is you get a lot of really dried out patches where the sun's directly shining, but anything that's kind of tucked away still stays really wet because, well, if the sun can't directly shine there, it can't, evaporate off that water. But with wind, it kind of flaps everything around, and so it just gets rid of all the water. So there you go. If you're like, I can't dry my things, get some air flowing. So if you do ever want to use a hairdryer or anything else to try and dry a garment, or if you're a yarn dyer, you can just use the cool setting on a hairdryer if you've got that, because that then just blows across it. Or if you've got a fan, that works as well. And it's not about, the warmth isn't as key. That's all I'm going to say. Chemist coming out to play, can't keep herself quiet. If you want any more chemistry information, I can also tell you how to wash your dishes the best. Also learned about that in my degree. Apparently the university in New Zealand was just really focused on all of us being really good house people. I don't want to say housewives, because is there such a thing as a house husband? What if you don't identify as a wife or a husband? Be really good and looking after your household. Apparently that's the degree I did. Object number 1 done! And I love it. I love it so much. It's so autumnal, the colours, that I can't wait for autumn. I love it with the colour with my hair, and it's just so beautiful. Absolutely love it. And the 2 skeins from ChintzPies, I saw them, I saw her posted on Instagram and immediately went like, I need those. I need those. And I bought 2 and had no idea what I was going to do. It was like some kind of a top. I know I can get that out of 2 skeins. So I'm really happy that it's actually, turned into a jumper. And she was also one of the test knitters. She did hers just in DK. So if you're not a fan of mohair or suri or anything fluffy, you can just use DK. The eyelet kind of increases do become more prominent because you haven't got the mohair to fluff it out. Bulk it out, if you will, but it's still beautiful, so I'd suggest checking her out on Instagram. That is officially the only object that I've finished that I've already shared. Now I'm still going through some old finished objects from the period I took off where I wasn't recording, so I've got a couple of these to share. I've kind of decided on some of the old ones. I might share them later on in the year, but a lot of them are kind of, well, even this is like hats and stuff, but yeah, I just don't really feel like talking about them. I've got enough, I think, to talk about anyway. So first, I want to talk about this. I don't think I've posted any pictures on Instagram about this. This is my Oslo hat. So the pattern is by Petite Knits, and my hair features everywhere. I finished this such a long time ago, but haven't worn it because it took me a long time. So it's a folded brim, but you stitch down one bit. So you knit, you turn it, so then you knit on the inside and then turn. Construction doesn't matter right now, but you have to sew this down. And I was like, I don't like that. But it was really easy to do. And I've actually made a second one with mohair. This is DK weight yarn is what you're meant to use. I use 2 strands of fingering weight. And I think I used 2 skeins to make this. And the colour is so beautiful. It's called Belfast, I'm pretty sure, by Irish Artisan Yarns. And a lot of that collection is inspired by places, obviously. Belfast being one of them. And I think there's also Cork as well, which I've got. And oh, they're all just beautiful. I suggest checking it out. But it was just so nice to knit. And I absolutely love the fit. So I have a big head. I think circumference-wise, I'm like 60 centimeters, which is apparently quite big. I think even typically from what I've heard, on average, I think women are meant to have smaller heads and smaller hands than men. They're also meant to typically be shorter. Isn't true for everyone. But I know a lot of my guy friends have smaller heads than I do, smaller feet, smaller hands. So I think I've complained before that both my hands are big and my feet, that I often buy socks and gloves that are kind of average men's size. So I think I didn't make the largest size for the hat, I'm pretty sure. I think I made, there's a couple of them, I think there might even be kids ones from memory. But I think I make the second to largest. Either that or the largest. I can't remember anymore. But I like the fit. It's got a bit of slouch to it, which I think is nice. And the rim is a little bit adjustable if you want it to be a bit more slouchy, because that doesn't start for a while. And you could have that showing if you wanted. I do not. But yeah, and I think the fit is just really adorable. That's why I made another one. But my Mohair one looks really beautiful. But it's stuck at the process of sewing it together, because I think this one I sewed together with 2 strands of the fingering weight yarn as well to make sure it was nice and sturdy. But I don't think I want to sew something together with Mohair, so I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to do it. But I love it. And the Mohair one, if you want to see the yarn, my one and only reel, I did like this, I was just inspired to do this thing of having the skeins kind of like pop up, move away, come back on, unraveled, and then kind of dance around, and then boom, they turn into cakes. It was fun to film. The quality's pretty crap. I don't know why that ended up being, probably because I filmed it quite late at night, so the lighting wasn't that great. But yeah, one of the things that I finished a while ago and could have been wearing during this winter, but I rarely ever go outside to like do anything anymore, you know, like with people or anything where I would wear a hat. Nowadays when I go outside for walks or errands like grocery shopping, I wear giant headphones because I don't want people to talk to me. Unless I know you, then you can stop me. But I get stopped quite often by strangers for directions and help and stuff, and I'm more than happy to help, but sometimes, you know, you're just in one of those moods where you're like, please don't speak to me. And that's when I wear the headphones. Especially because in the supermarket I'm like, do not approach me. COVID. Do not approach me. Oh, we've got lovely hat hair now. And then another one, I'll put it on and then I'll talk about it, because I'm quite proud of this one. Oh, we've got a bit of emo vibes happening with how I had my hair. So, name of the pattern? Can't tell you. I made it up. So I have shared, I'm pretty sure, a picture of this on Instagram, or it will be soon. This is entirely made out of Cardiff Cashmere Classic yarn. So it's 100% cashmere. It is incredibly soft. I'm not too happy with the fit at the top, but that's fine. I haven't actually blocked this, so the colour work and everything could end up looking a lot better. But I shared them. The chalet socks from a knitting shop in Vienna, in Austria, called Laniato. And my mum bought me the yarn, and I got the pattern with it and loved it, but then I had scraps. So the colours I used for the socks is this kind of darker one here, the brownish one, and then this cream colour here. And I'll take it off so you can get a closer look at it. And then I also had this brown colour, like caramel, kind of camel colour, and this black. And I had all these scraps and I was like, I'm not just... I think the Cashmere Classic comes in 25 gram balls. And it's expensive. It's cashmere, so of course it's expensive. And I didn't just want to... Even though with some of them, I think this one only had like 5 grams left. I was like, I'm not just going to let that sit around and never do anything with it. I was like, I want to make something with it. And so I kind of just calculated roughly how many stitches I would need to fit my big head. And then just kind of had a rough idea of some design elements and just went for it and didn't think too much about it. The decreases at the top aren't perfect because I don't think it sits perfectly, but that's fine. I don't really care. It's just warm and fluffy and nice, and I'm really happy with that. So 2 hats. That one I actually finished this year, I believe, but just never really shared the process, and I think I'd finished it and hadn't woven the ends in by the time I started filming, and I was like, I might as well wait. Other than that, the 2 next things I'm going to share are half-finished objects. So a lot of you will probably know if it's half-finished, it's probably socks. And by probably socks, I mean it's socks. Let's start with this one first. So you can see it's all like set up, ready to go. Got my needles, haven't cast on the second one. Not telling you just yet what it is, but it's in a Fibre Fox project bag, and I like doing this so I can just leave the cake of yarn in here. So I'll share the yarn first. So proof once again that I haven't started the second one because well, this isn't attached to anything, is it? So this is Winter's Dawn. It's the January colour for Georgie from the Fibre Fox's Mystery Sock Club. Absolutely beautiful. So I really should do the second one. I'm just... I don't know, there's something about finishing one sock, being really excited, and then struggling to get the second one on. I'm going to quickly go get a sock blocker, but I'll probably show it to you off the sock blocker and then on because it's a bit funny. She hasn't even woven in the end. I don't know why it's so long. Oh, I do know why it's so long. Oh, I forgot. Okay, I'll get onto that later. First of all, let me share what pattern it is. So this is from the beautiful 52 Weeks of Sock book that Liner. My German and English brain are fighting about how to pronounce that. So it's from this book here. The pattern is called Intersections. And in my last podcast episode, I completely got it wrong, realised I got it wrong, said a different name, and still got it wrong. Anyway, so here they are. Absolutely beautiful, and I do love this kind of simple plain grey colour. Oh, amazing. And these are toe-up socks. First ones I've ever made. I've never done toe-up socks, so I'll show you what it looks like right now. They fit perfectly. It's just with the cable design that runs up the front and the leg. They just need blocking. They really need blocking. You'll see on the sock blocker later, they look good. But look how long they are. I think that's so funny. But you can see how narrow it is. So it's just with how I think the pattern of the yarn combination, like, it's fine. Because when I put it on, this all has to stretch. But yeah, so worked toe up, which was really nice to like see the sock grow. But when I got to the heel, I was so nervous, but it was really easy to do. So much easier than a heel in, like, heel flap and gusset that I've done for cuff down. But it was weird because I assumed, I was like, oh, soon I will get to the toe section I need to decrease. If I'd done that, I would have just ended up with like this weird tube, but like closed off tube, which would have been funny. But I was just used to when you get to the end of the long bit, you do the toes, not the heel. It was bizarre, but it's quite nice. This is quite short for me, but maybe that's because this looks so long. But the reason that this thread is so long is I finished the sock and was like, cool, time to cast off. And every time I've done like casting off cuffs and stuff, it's always a bit, like you can see on this one, it's a bit snug. Because I have a tendency to cast off a bit too tightly, and I'm working on that. But because I'd never done toe up before, I was like, oh, I have to make sure, you know, I'm not casting on, I'm casting off, so I have to make sure it's not too tight, and I have to make sure it's super stretchy. So I did a stretchy bind off, and I was like, no, that's not what you want, because if it's too stretchy, then it's not going to hold it on anymore, because you want the sock to stay up by having, you know, a bit of snugness in here. So I had to redo it, and you can see, like, when I finished it, I cut the yarn and there was this much of a tail, so the stretchiness gave me like an extra meter that I needed to use, so that's why that's so long. But I will put it on the sock blocker, because I haven't actually seen it on the sock blocker, I've only seen it on my foot, and it looked nice. And I could block this one now, while I sometime, whenever, cast on the next one. But for some reason, I'm worried that I won't do the second one if I've already got one beautiful finished one. So I'm kind of just leaving it in the hopes that that will encourage me to actually finish the second one. So I just need to kind of... I've never put socks on sock blockers when they're not blocking. So you can see it looks fine. It's just with the pattern and the yarn and stuff that it just stretches out weirdly. So I'll give you a bit of a close-up. One, so you can see the yarn. Come on, focus. Please, please. There you go. But also so you can hopefully see... Ooh, a bit of lag. That wonderful kind of cable pattern that runs... Get rid of that. That runs down the sock. So you do it all the way around the leg. But obviously only the top of the foot. And the cuff itself is quite cool because if you can see, the last cable that you work feeds into the cuff, which I think is really cool. I'm not the biggest fan of knitting cables. I quite like how they look, but knitting them I find really frustrating because you all of a sudden need an extra needle. So when I shared these last time, I think it was like here. And what I was doing is all of the top of the foot I had on one needle, and then this was split between two needles, which was fine and it worked well. And then I knitted with the fourth, the fifth was my cable needle. But it just got a bit frustrating. And then I'd said in my latest podcast episode, like, I don't want to do the whole dropping the stitches off and kind of cabling by grabbing the two stitches you need, dropping the first two and then putting them kind of back on, cabling kind of without having to use a cable needle. But that's what I ended up doing and it worked really well. I didn't actually unravel because I kind of had a thought of stitches typically like to unravel down. Like if you drop a stitch and don't notice immediately, it's amazing how quickly it will unravel down. But typically stitches don't really unravel sideways unless you really, really tug. So I actually really enjoyed that and it made cabling so much quicker and so much more enjoyable. So the first one is done. Now I just really need to get onto the second one. And officially, this is meant to be my January pair of socks, not just because the yarn is the January colour from the Mystery Sock Club, but also because Michelle from the Love Based Yarn Company, who I've mentioned before, is doing a kind of knitting challenge like she did last year, which I did and succeeded. And this year it's knit 12 pair of socks from the 52 Weeks of Sock book. This is my January pair. We're in March, halfway through March. But last year I had it as well, that I was really slow at the beginning and then all of a sudden got to the last few months of the year and I was just knitting sock like crazy. So maybe that will happen. I also am just giving myself a bit of time because a lot of the a lot of the sock patterns in the 52 Weeks of Sock book are more complex because you're not going to get a vanilla sock. Why would that be in a book? Nobody wants that. Unless it's like a basic sock book. But for this kind of thing, we want something exciting and different. So it is just a bit more challenging. I don't often do pattern socks, so. But that's my first half finished object. And then, oh, these I'm so excited for. These I can't put on a sock blocker because they are not my size. So they're also socks. So some of you might be able to guess which socks I'm talking about. Oh, I did start the second one. I have impressed myself. There it is. I've got a finished foxtail sock. How cute are these? So I haven't blocked it. So because these are going to be a shop sample for Georgie from the Fibre Fox, and this is knit with a Plumpy base. I'll share the yarn colours in a bit. I can't block them because Georgie has smaller feet than I do. So I wouldn't want to, overstretch them. The heel's in as well. So I've started the second one, and in the pattern you can either knit exactly the same sock again to get a matching pair, or you can kind of reverse it so that this is then this orangey colour, and everything except the foxes you also invert it. So Georgie and I were talking a bit of what she wants, and she did decide she does want it inverted, so I've started, and I'm using 9-inch circulars because I find colour work much easier with them. So the second sock is going to have this in the maple colour instead of the driftwood colour. So absolutely stunning. And then the kind of background colour is shell. Actually remembered properly instead of going, oh, is it shell? So I haven't done much. I think I've done one round of ribbing. I'm on my second round. I think I was just tired one evening. I was like, oh, I'll get this started, but then went to bed. It has an afterthought heel, which I slightly modified because I could just tell it was really big, and then the final foot measurement would have been too big based on what Georgie told me. And I think it's because, so these are knit on 2.25mm needles, and with the stitches I needed to cast on to make sure the circumference of the foot was going to be okay, I think that meant that this would have had to be longer, and I either would have had to make this shorter or kind of modify the heel. So I hope this fits her. If it doesn't, I'll have to either modify it or maybe Georgie can. But to be honest, all I did was just start instead of doing the decreasing every second round for as long as I was meant to, I started the decreasing every round a bit sooner. And so it should hopefully just fit better. Because I think it was a bit much, because it's almost identical to this. And I'm like, that's a big heel. So this one's just a bit smaller and more rounded, which I think is a good thing. But once again, like, if I was knitting them for myself, I could try them on. So I've had to kind of wing it a bit, but I feel like a foot shape. So I think this should fit well. And then it's also, with blocking and wearing, it will kind of fit. I'm sure it will fit. But it was also that when I held it up like this, you can still kind of see that it just looks a bit like this was even longer. And it doesn't look natural, because even now it still sticks out a little bit. So we'll see how it fits. But one is done. I have not woven in the ends, because I always find I need to have a couple of projects where I need to weave in ends, and then I'm like, this is annoying. We're going to have a whole evening of just weaving in ends and it'll be fine. I also find with this project, because you've got, I don't know why I'm putting it away. I still wanted to say stuff about the pattern. The colour work starts out really gently for the first few rounds with just, the driftwood colour and the shell colour. And then very quickly you're like, oh, I have to knit with 3, which I'd never done before. But in my opinion, it went really well. I'm happy with my tension. I do think it got better here. Mainly not so much the tension, but more my confidence in understanding the pattern. So I kind of just continued knitting instead of constantly being like, wait, what am I doing next? And I think the design at the bottom, these little zigzaggy bits are so cute. So I'm hoping with blocking, it will just kind of even out any unevenness that I do have, because it's always going to be there with colour work. But this Plumpy base is just beautiful. It's got a little bit of like a halo, which is amazing. Super soft because of the cashmere. But because it's plumpier, I find it's beautiful for colour work, because it does just kind of help with having even tension because it plumps. Hence Plumpy. So I have once again fallen head over heels in love with Georgie's Plumpy base, and it's all I want to knit with right now. But my bank account will not allow it. Because being, you know, a base with cashmere, and it's going to be more expensive, it makes sense. But I think they look gorgeous. So I think, based on how much yarn I currently have left, I'm hoping I can get myself a pair out of these as well. I'll definitely have enough driftwood and maple. It's just whether I have enough shell, but I can easily just either, you know, like I said before, order another one or use a different colour for the background. It's fine as long as it's kind of neutral. So I don't think I've mentioned this time, but Georgie did send me this yarn for free in exchange for me knitting these socks for her as a shop sample. So she will then, I'll send the socks to her once they're done, but I get to keep the leftovers, which is quite nice. Plus I also just want to do it because I love this yarn. I'm just getting to knit with it. I don't have to keep the item. I'm just happy knitting with it. And I'm actually keeping this in a drawstring bag from Adventures in Yarncraft. I need to check in on the festival at some point again. I've already been talking for so long. Okay, next thing. Try and get through this a bit quicker, because I don't think I actually have too much to say about the next few. Sorry, I'm just getting organised. So, I've got something I haven't talked about before, but it's because I started it when I wasn't really recording, but then kind of didn't work on it for quite a while because I wanted to finish other things. So it's kind of just been sitting, and then all of a sudden I was just like, I want to work on this again. So I will share it and then I'll talk about it. So this is what I've got so far. So you can see V-neck, it's got some raglan, but look at that, more cables. So I think here you can probably see the colour a bit better. So it's a silvery grey colour with a lot of kind of purple bits in it. Absolutely beautiful. And I knitted until I finished the skein of yarn like I always do, and then started on the sleeve. Yeah, this one. And now I'm just waiting a bit because this is actually for Helena. So Permade Yarns, if you don't follow her, make sure you do. I'll have a link below. And this is her yarn. So she saw the sweater. This is the Iskald sweater by Caitlin Hunter, and she really loved it. I ended up buying the pattern for her. I don't think I'll ever knit myself one. I think it's kind of like a tunic design. But I knew how much she wanted, and I think I bought a few other patterns, and then I just bought that one for her, something like that. But anyway, and she started it, I think like 4 times, because I can't remember what the first few issues were, but then she had issues with kind of getting the cable right, and it is a bit confusing of knowing, because it's worked flat obviously at the beginning to get the V-neck, and it can be a bit confusing about remembering what round you're on, because the increase round is obviously increase on the knit side, just purl normally across, but then you have to remember every second increase round you need to do the cable, and it can be a bit intense. So I've got systems in place for how I kind of deal with something that's a bit confusing and fiddly like that. And so she just got really frustrated and was like, damn, but I really want it. Thought I had a snagged bit, but it's all good. And so I said to her, I was like, do you want me just to knit it for you? I'm more than happy to do that. And, you know, it means I'm not constantly making jumpers for myself, but actually, you know, knitting something where I don't then have to. I love all my jumpers, but there's only so many clothes a woman needs, or anybody really needs. But yeah, so I started this before Christmas, took it with me to Dubai, but then didn't really work on it because I brought way too many projects, and I just wasn't feeling it at the time. But then over the last kind of 2 weeks, I've just been going like crazy on it. So this is literally 2 weeks worth of progress, because the V-neck wasn't done yet. I was maybe like here. So I did a lot over the last 2 weeks. But that's where, you know, I was saying I haven't got much finished, but I made a lot of progress on things. So I really love how this yarn is working up. And the reason that I took a break from it, and it's got these caps on it, is I'm just waiting to hear whether the sleeve length is going to be okay for Helena or not, if she needs longer, shorter, whatever. So just waiting to hear that, and then I'll keep going, because I want to do the sleeves first, because we think we might have an issue of not having enough yarn, because the base is, oh, what was it? Is it a bamboo silk? Something like that. And it's only like 365 meters per 100 grams, like the Plumpy is as well. And so we're not sure with the skeins that Helena dyed whether it will be enough to make like the full length everything. So I'm going to do the sleeves first and then use what I can on the body, because it is a tunic, so it's, I think, ends up being relatively long and quite oversized and everything. But yeah, I've been working on that a lot until recently, because I just don't know, because you need to determine, do you make it longer or shorter right at the beginning, because then you start working the decreases. So just waiting to hear about that. So that's something I've been working on. Then the other one, oh, I was really hoping I'd have a certain bit done for this, but it's fine. I'm still happy with the progress. This next project is my Bryne sweater by Lerga from Fibre. Last time, I think I was still working flat and had like the front, the back done and most of the front done, and I was still doing like the herringbone stitch, and I don't think I'd joined it in the round yet. So I joined it in the round, but I've also finished the entire body. Oh, completely blowing me out. No. It's so bright. There you go, you can see it a bit. There we go. So there you can see the herringbone stitch at the top. So this is the front. You can see here the necklines are worked differently. And I've made it longer than the pattern says, because I wanted it to sit, where was it? If I'd made it the length, it would have been about hip height, and I wanted it just a little bit longer. So I added some length, but that's fine. I'm more than happy to do that. Like I said, I'm relatively tall. And then did the ribbing, finished that yesterday, and started the sleeve. So I did pick up more stitches than I was meant to for the sleeve, because there's meant to be 2 inches of positive ease in the sleeve, and if I'd picked up the number I was meant to, it would have been tight. This would have been stretched like crazy. The hole here that's left was big enough to pick up more stitches, and so that's what I did. And I've been working the decreases now, so I'm working the 4th size, I think, but the 2nd to largest or 3rd to largest sleeve size. I've got big arms. I don't know what to say. And I'd rather have them a bit, I like fitted sleeves, but I also don't want it to be so tight that I feel like I can't really move. So I have gone for a bigger one. I haven't tried it on yet. I normally do, but with the circular needles I'm using, I just want to wait until I get it a bit longer. So I'm hoping I can finish that today. I've still got a few decreases to work before I knit for a bit and then do the cuff. So the pattern, Lerga says you can either knit the sleeve first to check your tension and stuff, so work a cuff up, or pick up the stitches along here and then work it down. I just prefer this. I like it, while I don't really enjoy picking up stitches, I prefer that to stitching on the sleeve, because I find I've now got a lot of give in here, whereas I find when I've bound off stitches and sewed it together when I work things flat and stuff, this can all get a bit tight if you're not careful, and I'm like, this is easier for me. But once that sleeve is done, hopefully today, depends of how much longer I'm going to record, I need to do the neckband, 2nd sleeve, and then it's done and I get to block it. To be honest, part of me is like, I don't even think it needs to be blocked, because the yarn itself just sits beautifully in how it's worked up. So the yarn that I'm using is The Gathering Storm by Wild Atlantic, an Aran weight one, and it's 100% merino. And I mentioned in my last podcast, but the herringbone stitch, with how it's worked, it just makes this super squishy, beautiful fabric up the top. So you've got the herringbone at the top, and then you can see it switches to stockinette, and it's just to die for. The colour as well, love it. So still a bit to go on there, but to be honest, the sleeve's going quite quickly. It is Aran weight. This is currently what I've left of my skein. I've been working a lot of my cakes from the inside out, because I find it easier, because then it doesn't roll around everywhere, but at the end it's just a bit frustrating and delicate moving it around. So the last two things. So this is, I guess, my only new cast on. I've been really focused on getting things done that I'm doing for other people. So the Iskald sweater for my friend Helena, the Foxtail socks for my friend Georgie. Yes, the Breine sweater is for me, but that's the only thing I've been working on really that's for me. And then I've got a secret project I mentioned last time, which I'm really close to being done with. It's a jumper, that's kind of all I can say. And once it's done, I'll share it, like I'll record it, but won't publish that in a podcast until the person has the jumper. Because I do just want to keep a secret. Not sure if they would watch this, but just in case. But the thing I've started is a pair of socks. So they're quite big, because they're for a friend of mine, and he has quite big feet. Not long, wide. So I think I did 72, 74 stitches, something like that. I wanted to do a 2x2 cuff, because that's what I like for socks, and I just forgot. So I did a 1x1, and I'm not sure when I rip this back. But the yarn I'm using is an opal yarn, and it's part of their Black Dragon collection. What was this one called? I do want to look it up, because I like the names. And I like the fact that it's... what was I just saying about Black Dragon? Like, I like the name of all the different yarns and stuff, because it's kind of, to do with dragons and stuff. Let's have a look. Okay, weird. Just looking for my confirmation email. There we go. So this one was... I don't want them in English. I wanted it in German. Bear with. Or will be edited out for your viewing pleasure. Okay, so I can't find the name in German anymore, because I'm pretty sure opal is a German yarn produced in Germany and stuff. And it doesn't even have an English name on the ball band. But in English, this colorway is called Cuddly Dragon's Nest. So I think it was something like Kuschliches Drachennest, something like that, which is literally that translated. So I'm assuming it will be pretty much the same. And it's a zebra yarn. Just dropped a needle. I'm not sure how many people are familiar with these. I've never knitted with them until now, but that's why you can see here that you get, let me try and show you just a couple of strands. Just this one strand of this black colour plied with the other colours. So first of all, you get this change from purple to blue. But then because the zebra stuff, you also get this kind of like mild effect. Did I mention I like mild things? So yeah, these are from a friend of mine because I'd been feeling a bit overwhelmed with everything I've got going on with my PhD and a lot of other stuff. And I'd been running a D&D campaign, and I kind of had to step back and be like, I can play, but I can't run anything right now. And he jumped in and was like happy to run something so everyone can keep playing. And so he's getting some socks, just as a thank you. There's been other things he's done as well, but that was a big thing for me, the fact that I still get to play, my friends still get to play, and it is a decent amount of work to organise a campaign. And so I like the fact, because it's, Dungeons and Dragons, the fact that this yarn has something to do with dragons. So I think that's cute. But not much to say, it's just going to be a vanilla pair of socks. I think the first time I'm making him socks, and it's just I'm not used to making such white socks. But he's got, I think, shorter feet than I do, so it'll be wide, but it won't be that long, so I don't know, in the end it kind of all works out to the same amount of stitches, don't you? Don't you? Doesn't it? There we go. The last one I'm going to share is one I started in December, and took me a really long time to kind of figure out how I was going to do this, and then kind of put it aside because, like I said, I'm trying to focus very much on these couple of projects and get something done. So I've got in my Excel spreadsheet that I keep, which I've mentioned before, I kind of use colours to colour code things so I know what I'm going to be focusing on. And I allow myself a little bit of wiggle room if, this is why I have multiple projects, because not necessarily that I get bored, but depending on my mood, there are certain things I like doing and certain things I don't really like knitting. Oh my god, I've been talking so much that my throat's just drying out. And sometimes you don't want, 3-stranded colour work because it's very intense. And sometimes you just want to do a stockinette sock and be in happy, blissful, mindless land. But so the project I'm about to share is what I'm making with Georgie's, so Fibre Fox, Georgie's Advent from last year. So I had an idea, then kind of scrapped it because it would have been really hard to figure out how to kind of fade it, and then settled on the Telegram cardigan by Becky Sorensen. Soprano Knits, I think is her name on Ravelry and Instagram. It will be linked below. I'll try and, include the name and everything here, and maybe even try and include a picture so you know what I'm talking about. But this is what I have so far. And isn't it beautiful? Why is everything just being blown out today? There we go. My computer's just... Come on. I've been recording so long my computer fell asleep. Absolutely beautiful. So it's a broken rib that you work. Don't know how well you can see that. Oh, you can see the colour so much better now. So you can see how I'm fading them. So we started out with this really bright red, and we're getting into some oranges and stuff, and now we're getting into more like purple pink territory. So I've used 2 colours fully now, and now I'm working the third with the fourth. So I'm fading out the third now and fading in the fourth. And it took me a really long time to kind of calculate, because I did a test swatch to get an idea of my tension, because I'd heard Hannah from the Corner of Craft, who made this. She's the reason I'm making this, because I love her telegram. She's finished it, and she's been wearing it in her podcast, and it's just so beautiful. And so I've wanted to make one for a while, and then kind of just went, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. Like a beautiful rainbow. If you haven't seen Georgie's Fade, have a look on her Instagram account, because it's beautiful. And just, I was just like, I think that is going to be beautiful faded down the cardigan, because it's a cardigan. But it took me a really long time, even after the test swatch. I'm all over the place. So Hannah said that Becky apparently has quite a loose tension, so she uses much smaller needles. So I was like, definitely swatching, especially because I saw the needle size and I was like, that is quite small. So I'm using 3.5s, which is bigger than what the pattern says. And so I swatched for that reason, but then also to try and figure out how many stitches can I get out before I run out of yarn, and how can I make the most use out of all the yarn to make sure I go through all the colours, but then also bearing in mind I want the sleeves to kind of match up with the body. It's probably not going to be perfect. This is my first fade project, but I'm loving it so far. And because it's worked flat, I had 2 choices. Either, well, I'll talk about the one I didn't do first. So you could join the new yarn, knit 1 row, and then with the other one, you'd have, which would now be over here because it's not on the round, you'd then have to knit another row, but bearing in mind you have to stay in pattern, so you have to kind of reverse what you're knitting. So very, very complex potentially. And what have I got going on here? Dear Lord. There we go. And so I was like, I don't want to do that. So Mine's a bit more stripy than I guess most fades would be, because I've always done 2 stripes fading in. So I worked a bit in colour 1, 2 rows of my day 2 colour, 4 rows of my day 1, 2 rows of day 2, 2 rows of day 2, day 1, 4 rows of day 2, 2 rows of day 1, and then that's gone, 4 rows of day 2, and then you kind of repeat 2 rows of day 3 and so on. But as I've been working, when I finished day 2, I had very little yarn left, and I was like, cool, I gotta scrap some rows. I'll stick with this for now, it's fine, I'm not gonna unravel it. It doesn't all have to be even and perfect, because ideally with a fade you can't really, like, yes, you can tell if you really look about the fact that there are different colours and rows, but it starts to get a bit confusing here about, okay, where did you work what and stuff like that. So if I start to lose a couple of rows and, you know, do fewer rows of the 2 colours fading into each other, I think it'll be fine. So I'm just going to scrap doing the fade for as long as I've had to do it here, and I'll have to do it shorter. And I finished the main increases for the V-neck and stuff, and I'm now just up to the finishing off the raglan for the body, the sleeves and stuff. And then the sleeves will get bound off, and then I just have to make sure I've always got enough yarn to do the sleeves as well, obviously. But beautiful! So this is the one I'm currently using up. So that's day 3. Yep, day 3. This is day 4. And then I've got a whole bag with the other ones in here. This is a Marimekko bag. If you don't know Marimekko, I think they're from, it's a Finnish company. And they just make beautiful prints and things like this. Beautiful clothes as well. Let's see if I can find, I've put labels on these because I took this advent calendar with me to Dubai, and then for some reason didn't put things back in the boxes that it came in, which are super cute. And then when I came back and started organising this and working on it again, I was like, wait, which colour goes when? So I sat down and I've put stupid, I was going to swear, stupid little like things on there. So this is the next colour, day 5, that I'll be fading in. So you can see, and there's 6 and 7, we're starting to move into the pinks, and then soon it will be purples, and then it goes to blue and then green, or green and then blue. No, we end on green. But yeah, so that's the Telegram cardigan using Fibre Fox Advent Calendar from 2020. So is that why? I can't remember why I've got this stitch marker on here. I'm like, is that where no, I had more than that already. So over the Christmas period, I started it, but like I said, it took a long time to sort, and I think I got to about here before I kind of figured out what to do and everything, and then just left it, focused on other things. And since then, I've been just a couple of, like an hour or 2 every other evening, just knitted this. So it's slow going because I have to make sure I'm on track with the working the right rows and making sure where I am with my fade. But it's been a nice challenge with the design process of how to get the fade to work. But the actual knitting itself is really nice. I love broken rib. I would have thought it wouldn't be that nice. I don't mind purling, but after a while it does kind of hurt my hand because I do a lot more of this motion, which can start to hurt. But it's just, I don't know, it's really lovely, and I like doing increases and stuff. So I can't wait to see how this looks especially once I'm into like the blues and stuff, where it's very different, because currently it's still kind of, you know, if you hold these 2 parts next to each other, they're not that different yet. So I think by the time I get to like day 10 and stuff, it'll get really interesting. So that's everything I've been working on. I sadly haven't really been working on my dark water sweater. I've had too many other things that I really want to focus on because I want to finish off things for other people, because I don't mind my projects dragging on, but for other people I'm like, I'm not okay with that. They've already dragged on long enough in my opinion. So my dark water sweater is currently hibernating, but that will be one of the next things I start working on when I finish something. So either when I've finished the foxtail socks or once I finished my Ply sweater. Pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. Not how I pronounced it the first time. So I can't share that. Part 2 of that video is coming because I'd already filmed that. But part 3, I'll hopefully get to film sometime in the next week. I don't have much new stuff to share, so rarely any new cast-ons. And the socks really are the only thing I've started. And not really that many new acquisitions either that I can share. But there is something exciting. So I'll first share this. So for you keen-eyed people, the DPNs I was using for those socks I'm making for a friend, they were very different to what I normally use. Normally I am a Knit Pro Zing user, and those were not. So here's the set I bought. So these are the DPN sock sets by Licker. I think that's how you pronounce it. These are expensive, let me just say that. But look at how beautiful they are. Absolutely stunning. So these are the ones that I'm currently using. 2.5s, I think it is. I love them so much. They're so nice to knit with. They're 15 centimeters long. So you can see the size written on there. And it goes from 2. So you've got 2, 2.25, 2.5, 2.75, 3, 3.25, 3.5 and 3.75. So literally all the kind of different ones you could need for socks. The reason I bought these, because they're expensive, like I said, is I ended up helping out with kind of like a survey and some research stuff for a friend of mine who's doing her PhD up in Scotland. And she contacted me, was like, would you mind doing the survey? I need people to do it. It's anonymous, so she won't even know what answer is mine. I was like, more than happy. And then also asked a couple of other people, like, would you mind helping out? And I know how hard it can be to get people to take part in that stuff, but it's so important for people's research. And to entice people, she was like, I think there's 2 £50 Amazon vouchers that were going. And I think I did the survey back in like 2019, so before the pandemic. And she didn't draw the winners until the research was done, in case, she needed anything else, because people are more likely to respond to things if they're like, oh, well, if this prevents me from winning. So she drew the winners and then messaged me and she was like, Nina, you won one of the vouchers. She was like, that was crazy. So I bought these off of Amazon, but it was from Amazon Marketplace. So these were actually shipped by Laughing Hens, I think is the yarn shop. So I'm trying not to buy from Amazon unless I really can't buy anywhere else, especially knitting stuff. I'd rather support small businesses, but I had this £50 voucher. There was nothing else I really needed, and I was like, oh, this is something I really want, but can't afford just to buy on its own, especially because I have DPNs. But so I used the voucher. I still had to pay some money on top of it, but I thought, I'm using the voucher on Amazon because that's, what it was for, but at least I'm still, the money, maybe not all of it, I don't know how Amazon Marketplace works, but at least it's still kind of, supporting a small business, because I've bought from Laughing Hens before. So that's the first thing, and as you've seen, they're already in use and just dropping yarn, and they've been great. I normally knit with 20 centimeter ones, but to be honest, 15 works well, and those socks, like I said, have more stitches, so they're wider, and they still fit really nicely on there. Next thing, I placed an order. Of course, I bought more Fibre Fox stuff. I shared the January Mystery Sock Club. This is the February one, which I think should be fine to share because we're in March. So if you don't want to know, look away from this portion of the video. So this is the February colour. So it's called Promise of Spring. So I ordered it on her merino sock. I really want to buy future ones on her Plumpy base, but currently she's been out of stock of it because of her supplier not having any. But in case you don't want to know, I'm not going to try and explain the colours. I'm hoping, It's okay if you just look at it. There you go. Absolutely stunning. So, so beautiful. So this will probably turn into my February pair of socks for the challenge I mentioned before from the 52 week of sock book. Stunning! I've ordered the March one, and which will obviously won't be dyed up until like the end of March. And the other thing that I bought as well, which was a pre-order, along with, well, that was a pre-order as well. But anyway, is this book here? Strands of Joy. I'm sure if you watch other knitting podcasts, you've heard about it already, because all the ones I've been watching have already mentioned it, but I need to say my part as well. So this is by Anna Joanna, which I think is just so beautiful pronouncing that. And there's 20 knitting patterns in here, all to do with colour work, hence Strands of Joy. So absolutely stunning patterns. I've never had it with a pattern book that I'm like, I could make every single one of these, and I want to. I think I counted, and realistically, if I go through and I go, I could make this, 18 out of the 20 I will be making. The other two, I'm like, they're really nice, but I don't think I should make all of them. And I probably won't get to all of them, but 18 out of the 20 I adore, and the other two I'm like, I love. So, but the first one I'm gonna do is the woodland cardigan. Can you see how there's like a bear here, there's trees. I'm not sure if there's pictures of the other things that are included. Oh, you can maybe see here, because there's also like rabbits and squirrels and stuff. And the charts in the back, you have to pull it out because it's so long, because it goes all the way around the cardigan, obviously. So that's the first thing I want to make. I have my main colour. I don't yet have a contrast colour. And I hope it's okay that I'm sharing this. I'm sure it is. But Georgie's actually going to run a knit-along starting beginning of April, I'm pretty sure, where it's all just about knit something from this book, because so many of us love all the patterns, and so why not? So many of us also bought the book from her. So this is another one I really like. I just like that it's all quite simple, but very beautiful and elegant. I like the kind of more neutral colours. Reed is another beautiful one as well. Like I said, all of them. All of them! I want all of them. So we've got on Instagram, Georgie's made a... Was it Georgie who made a group chat? Someone made a group chat. And we've all just been talking about what we want to make, and everyone's trying to decide on colour, and every time someone says, I want to make this one, someone else is like, maybe I should make that one. Oh no, I don't know what to do. But the second one I'll probably make from the book is this knitted dress. Never thought, I talked about this before, never thought I'd want to make a knitted dress, but I saw Inga from Knitting Traditions make one, but then I also saw this one and I was like, I love it. Absolutely love it. So I think those will be my first two out of this book. But yeah, absolutely stunning book. So if you are thinking about getting it, I would highly recommend it. Look at those feathers. Oh, just amazing. So yeah, the woodland cardigan is steeked, which I know terrifies some people. I haven't really made progress on my steeked cardigan because, like I said, I've been trying to focus on other things. So no progress to share on that one, but I should be able to finish the colour work soon. And then it's just stocking it forever and ever and ever. I think that's everything knitting-wise. PhD-wise, for any of you who are interested, I have my ups and downs with writing. I have until the end of September to finish writing. I'm hoping to finish before that, because I want to be done with it. I shouldn't need that long, and when I have a good day or a good week, I get a lot done. So I'm currently at a point where My one chapter is really close to being done. I was hoping to get it done this week, but I'm going to just need it might be done by about Wednesday next week. And then it's ready to kind of just a quick read through and send it off to my supervisor for feedback. That's like my medium chapter out of my results. My short chapter of my results I hadn't started until this week, and then just kind of found some old work that I'd written up, pasted that all into a new document, started working on that, and that went really well. So I've got that started, and it is a short chapter because there wasn't too much work with it. So that will be my first results chapter, and it should be quite easy to write. Then my last chapter is the big one, the chunky boy. So that was the first one I started working on. It's probably about 50% complete, is already at like 60, 70 pages, and I still have so much more to do. But the more I work on this medium chapter, the more it kind of fills me with confidence with that big one. After that, I need to write conclusions, and then also my kind of general introduction and methodology. But I am currently looking to apply for some postdocs and hopefully be at a point that if I get any of them, to still probably be writing when I start them, but to not have too much left to do. On a good day, I can typically write anywhere between 5 to 10 pages, which in my opinion is quite good. But on a bad day, sometimes I'll write a paragraph. Sometimes I don't even get any words out at all. And I'm trying to be kind of kind to myself with the whole writing process because it's tough. You're trying to summarize and understand work that you've done for like 3 years, if not more. And it is intense to hold all of that knowledge, try and understand it, link it back to how it fits into other things that relate to what you've been working on. And it is a lot to do. And I always kind of judge, is today going to be a working day, or am I going to focus more on my knitting and taking it easy and thinking instead of just trying to write? Is when I boot up my computer, sit down, look at my work, and if I cry, I'm like, okay, today's a thinking day. Today's a take it easy, do some knitting. Knitting really helps with my writing because my hands are busy and I'm doing something and seeing progress visually, like actually being able to see proper progress. But my brain isn't fully engaged. And it means that when I then either later that day, I have it quite often that I'll knit in the morning, sit down in the afternoon for an hour or two and really write, just write for like straight for 2 to 3 hours or something and write quite a few pages, because during that time in the morning, I've been thinking about all the work I'm trying to understand and how it all relates. And it just means that while officially I'm only sitting down for a couple of hours at the end of the day, it would have taken me just as long, if not longer, if I'd forced myself to sit in front of the computer and try and do all that analysis and thinking. So in some ways it's a win-win because it means I can still get a lot of knitting done. It's also good for my well-being, my mental health and stuff, because I'm not forcing myself into doing something really uncomfortable and stressful. And it also just means I'm enjoying the writing process, which means it's easier the next day to sit back down instead of being like, I'm suffering because this is traumatic now because every time I sit down I cry. So that's kind of the update I have with the PhD. I'm not sure how relevant this is going to be to people, but once I finish filming this video, I'm actually going to try and sit down and film a video talking about the same things, but in German. So for those of you who don't know, I can't remember how much I've shared about this, but I'm originally from Austria, so my first language is actually German. My English is definitely better than my German because it's like my PhD, it's in English. All the studying I've done at university has been in English. I've lived in an English-speaking country since I was 8. I think that's when we moved to Australia. I am turning 30 this year, so I've lived away from Austria for quite a while. We do tend to go back as often as we can, and I still speak German to my parents, but that's kind of it. There's a few things I listen to and watch which will be in German, and obviously my other family in Austria, talk to them in German when I see them. But knitting stuff, I don't really know a lot of it in German, but I thought it would be nice. Interact with a, different part of the knitting community and just see how it goes. I am assuming those videos will be much shorter because I tend to not be as rambly, because I think very much in English. It's only when I've been in Austria for a few weeks or months that my brain starts to switch into thinking in German, and then when I come back like to the UK or when I lived in New Zealand, I suddenly speak and everyone would look at me weirdly and I was like, oh, I spoke in German, didn't I? Because my brain just wasn't translating it. So when I'm in an English speaking country for a while, like I am now with York, then my brain thinks in English, and when I speak in German, it typically translates what I want to say in English into German, which means it doesn't always work out. And I'm like, well, that was wrong. But the same thing happens when I've been in Austria for quite a while and speaking a lot of German, and it's all I hear around me. My brain thinks in German, and when I speak English, it tries to translate from the German. I'm like, that doesn't make sense either. So, bit of insight into my bilingual brain for you. But so I'm hoping to get that filmed now. I'm probably just going to grab another drink and set everything up again, record it all again. So you'll be seeing that, but obviously I'm expecting a lot of you not to watch it because, one, it's the same stuff. Same project, but I'll probably talk about it a bit differently just because it is a different language, so you think differently. But I would also assume a lot of you wouldn't watch it because you probably don't speak German. And I just have a few kind of family members and family friends and stuff who want to watch my videos but don't speak English, so we'll see. We'll see if I keep up with it, but I thought it'd be nice, and if they are a bit shorter, that's probably not a bad thing. But right now I need a drink and take a bit of a break because my throat is dry from all the talking. I think that was everything. Who knows? Probably forgot something. You can hear about it later on in another video. Follow me on Instagram if you want to keep up with what I've been working on. I try to post almost every day. Depends how busy I am and whether I can be bothered. Follow me on Instagram. It's at Nina_Maria_design. I will include it here. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more kind of videos and stay up to date with what I'm been working on. And that is the end of the video. So thank you so much. It was another long episode and I didn't even have that much to talk about. This one can talk. But I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in future videos. Thank you. Bye.